Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Avani Ratan. I am here today to help you with the topic of Dialectical Behaviour Therapy. We are currently on part 4, which would address the DBT life skills. So starting with, how do we help the clients survive a crisis? So the very first thing in this to consider is the distress tolerance skills. So we need to identify the problem behaviors first. So as always, the first step in using skills is to help clients increase their awareness. What behaviors do they engage in? What are the unhealthy or even the self-destructive behaviors? So the long list of possibilities includes drinking, using drugs, gambling, self-harming behaviors, threatening or attempting suicide, lashing out at people who care about them, shoplifting, driving dangerously, under or overeating, or sleeping to avoid or escape life. So examining the costs and benefits of problem behaviors. So the skill of looking at the pros and cons is used when clients are ambivalent about giving up a behavior and they need help seeing that the behavior has costs or negative consequences. So doing a cost benefit analysis, it helps come to terms with it so one can make a more conscious decision to either engage in the behavior or to choose to act in another manner. So, in the event that they choose to continue with the problem behavior, the analysis has at least had the effect of helping them recognize that they're making a choice rather than just reverting back to a habit. First, have them think of the benefits and the costs of the behavior. So, clients usually don't have difficulty with this. They know how they find the behavior helpful and they can often see at least some of the negatives. Then have them consider the flip side. What are the benefits and the costs of not engaging in the behavior? So, what happens when they don't resort to engaging in the behavior? So, once the client have identified some costs and benefits in each area, have them rate it on a scale from 1, which is very little important, to 5, which is of high importance. So here the idea is to have them assign a numerical value to each cost and benefit so that rather than just looking at how many items they have in each chart, they can assign a numerical value to each category of the benefits and the costs. So this provides a better assessment of whether the behavior is truly helpful or is it harmful. So what is useful about this cost benefit analysis versus a pros and cons chart is that the clients aren't just comparing how many answers they come up with for each category. They're looking at the weight of each answer in each category. But in other words, by assigning each answer a numerical value, clients can come up with a total for each category and see. Hopefully, they can see the benefits of acting in a healthy way and the consequence of acting in an unhealthy way, which outnumber the benefits of acting in an unhealthy way and the costs of acting in a healthy way. Right? Here, a rating would give them a better idea versus only the pros and cons. So, in addition to helping clients make the decision to set a goal of stopping an unhealthy behavior, the cost benefit analysis can provide support along the way. So, resisting the urge. Although it's often very difficult for clients to change habitual problem behaviors, there are a lot of things they can do to help themselves not act on the urge. So, in DBT, these are known as crisis survival skills. So here now we will be discussing the crisis survival skills. So you could also remember it with the acronym RESIST with the double T. So here the first thing is reframe. R stands for reframe. So you mindfully engage in an activity. We do something for someone else. There are intense sensations. We shut it out, we think neutral things, and we take a break. So that's what this acronym stands for. So first is reframe. So reframing refers to changing one's perspective about something. So it helps clients make lemons out of lemonade, or it helps them see the silver lining. So you have to be careful that in doing so, you do not invalidate the client or you do not minimize their worries. So now I'll take an example between the client and the therapist, the dialogue. It could help you explain it better. So let's just say that the client says, I can't believe that I've been in therapy and I'm doing all of this work for almost 2 years and I've started binging again. What's wrong with me that I can't stop? I know how unhealthy it is and I don't want to gain weight again. So now the therapist would say that yes, you are struggling, but it makes sense given all of the stresses in your life right now. So this is how you validated the client. So if this was 2 years ago, how do you think you'd be coping with everything that's going on? So you put up a question further, to which your client replies that, well, I'd probably be in the hospital already. At the very least, I'd be feeling suicidal and wouldn't be functioning very well. So after hearing this, the therapist would rather say that yes, so even though you've gone back to an unhealthy behavior, you're not where you were 2 years ago. In fact, you're coping quite a bit better than what you were back then, right? So the client says, yeah, I guess that you're right. So this was a dialogue which we could use as an example to understand that there would be many different ways to reframe. So this one dialogue was just an example of helping a client compare herself now to how she was in the past at a time when she wasn't coping as well. So this can often help clients acknowledge that the changes they've made, even though they may still be struggling, are still significant. Now the term E. So here it's mindfully engage in an activity. Mindful engagement in an activity. So here, getting one's mind off of a painful situation and the emotions it's evoking is often helpful. So telling people to not think about an unwanted emotion actually increases the activation of that emotion. So whereas providing them with something to think about in the place of the emotion, it greatly increases their ability to not think about it. So the important lesson for clients is that if they don't want to think about something or feel something, efforts to not have the experiences are paradoxically the most effective way to ensure that the experience persists, right? So if they say to themselves that I don't want to feel this way, the feeling will hang around even longer because of trying to push it away. So rather than trying not to think or feel a certain way or certain things, they need to learn to distract themselves. So there is a subtle but a very critical difference between trying to push an experience away and turning your mind to something else. So when you try to push an experience away, you're judging it and trying to avoid it. But when you're trying to push something away, it goes into the basement and it lifts the weights. So not only does it not go away, it actually gets bigger. So in contrast, when we turn our minds to something else, we are acknowledging the experience and then moving our attention elsewhere without judgment. So without judgment, we are shifting the attention. Right. So rather than judging our experience, we just notice it and then bring our attention to whatever it is that we are doing in the present. So when the clients are in crisis, you want them to be able to distract with the activities that will hold their attention. So have them make a list of these activities they can do that might distract them when they're feeling distressed. Right? So there are n number of activities like taking a walk, calling a friend, baking cookies, playing with a pet, reading with their children, going to the gym, many of them. Now the S. So S here stands for do something for someone else. do something for someone else. Sometimes an effective way for clients to get their minds off their own problems is to do something for someone else. When clients are in crisis, they might find it helpful to distract themselves by turning their attention to someone else. So perhaps visiting a friend who's in the hospital or who can't get out of the house, maybe spending a couple of hours baking a special treat for a family member or a friend, or maybe planning a surprise for someone you care about. So such activities can distract them from their pain. Of course, when they are in extremely difficult times, they may not be able to think of something they can do for someone else. So, have them come up with some ideas in the sessions which add to their list of the activities that can help them get through the crisis without making it worse. Now, the I, which is experiencing intense emotions. So, this is intense emotions. So here, sometimes generating intense physical sensations, these can distract the mind from painful emotions. So this helps explain why many clients resort to cutting or hurting themselves in other ways, because it can actually help them feel better temporarily. So the key here is to help the clients identify these intense emotions, have them think about the physical sensations they can generate that might take their mind off a crisis. So, for people who engage in self-harm, holding an ice cube in one hand, this can cause the physical pain if held long enough, and the sensations are also intense. So, for some people, this can also take place of self-harming behaviors. So, some are the examples that the clients might do to get their mind off a crisis is maybe take a hot or a cold bath or a shower, or maybe keep a rubber band on one wrist and snap it, but not so hard that it causes a lot of physical pain, but hard enough to generate a sensation that will temporarily occupy the mind. Maybe chewing on crushed ice or frozen fruit, or going for a walk in the cold or the hot weather, laying down in the hot sun. So, make your clients add more to the list about whatever sensation they can think of, or whatever activity they could think of which could help them in the moment of crisis. S is for shut it out. So, quite often, clients' surroundings and the people around them can contribute to the overwhelming emotions they experience. So, when this is the case, physically leaving the situation and going somewhere calm and quiet will make it more likely that they can use their skills, they can access their wise self and manage their emotions more effectively. Right? So, this is one of the things that they could try to subtract themselves from the situation and move away. Now, T is for thinking neutral thoughts. So, focusing the attention on neutral thoughts can provide the distraction from the emotions and the urges. So, it reduces their intensity. So, neutral thoughts can be anything that won't add to the distressing emotions. So, a common example is counting till 10 to help you remain in control when you are feeling angry. So, some other examples could be saying a prayer, or maybe singing a favorite song, or reciting a nursery rhyme or a poem, right? So these also help in managing the difficult emotions. Now, discussing the steps to manage your urges. So rate the urge from 1, which is a minimal urge, to 10, highly intense urge. Set an alarm, for example, on your cell phone, an alarm clock, or maybe a kitchen timer. So for 15 minutes, and commit to not acting on the urge for those 15 minutes. So by putting some time between when the urge arises and when you act on it, you may find that the urge decreases and you are able to not act on it. So don't set a time longer than 15 minutes, or resisting for that long may be very, very overwhelming or maybe unachievable. So during the next 15 minutes, use the distress tolerance skills to get yourself through the crisis. So having the urge in a crisis and acting on the urge will make the situation even worse. So make the client pull out the list of the reasons to not act on the urge from their side, maybe through their cost benefit analysis worksheets, and the client has to read them to remind them to yourselves that why they don't want to act on that urge. Then they could use the resist skills to help not act on the urge. It is also helpful if they do these activities so that it makes it harder for them to act on the urge. So if the urge is to go to the casino, maybe take a shower. Once you have showered, you have to dry off, dry the hair, get dressed again before you can go anywhere. So it puts more time between the person and the action. So if the urge is to eat junk food, probably go for a walk. So it's harder to eat while the person is walking down the sidewalk. So if a person has a dog, maybe take them for a walk. That walk maybe will put up a distance between the emergence of the urge and the acting up upon the urge. Now, coping ahead. So the final distress tolerance scale is called coping ahead. So when clients know that an upcoming situation will be emotionally difficult, it can be very helpful for them to rehearse their plan ahead of time so that they are prepared to cope in a more skillful way.